Hello, good morning. Welcome to your daily hope booster video. Today is Thursday, and today I would like to talk about emergenetics behaviors. So a few weeks ago, can't remember when, I talked about emergenetics, which is a psychometric self-assessment tool to help us to better understand how we think, but also how we behave and how we show up in the world. So during that other video, I spoke about the 4 thinking preferences, and today I'd like to speak about the 3 behavior preferences, because I feel like as we are adjusting to being at home full-time with our families, I imagine that our behaviors are showing themselves in a real strong and prevalent way, and I wanted to talk about how we can use our emergenetics behaviors and to help reduce our stress, to help find some structure or some patience, or just to recognize how others in our family might be feeling and how they might be behaving and showing up based on their preferences. So if you remember from that video, we talk about emergenetics in terms of the energy it takes for us to do something. So, where we get our energy, how we recharge our energy, that kind of thing. We're all going to get to the finish line. It just depends on how much energy and how quickly or how slowly we get to that finish line based on our emergenetics preferences. So it really is about energy. It's not about anything much more than the energy we expend to get there. Okay, so we also talk about emergenetics on a spectrum. So there's no high or low, good or bad, right or wrong. We talk about it on a horizontal spectrum. These are our strengths, and we get to use these strengths to our advantage. There's nothing bad about a preference. There's nothing that you should feel that you aren't good at or negative about any of your preferences and where you fall in that horizontal spectrum. It is just where you fall on that spectrum, and you get to use that strength to your advantage. So if we have that horizontal spectrum, if you imagine a line and from left to right, on the left-hand side of the spectrum, we call that the first third. So we split that spectrum into thirds. First third, second third, third third. I know, it's so early for math. But if we can split we split the spectrum into thirds, and on the first third and third third end of the spectrum, those are the kind of extremist ends. Those are where your behaviors and your thinking preferences will show up in a brighter way if your behaviors and thinking preferences fall in first third or third third. Those of you whose behaviors or thinking fall in the second third, it means that you can flex either way. So depending on the situation, your behaviors, specifically today, your behaviors can flex either way. You can expend more energy to do the things on either end of the spectrum. Does that make sense? You can flex both ways depending on what's required of you. All right, so for the behaviors, we have 3 behaviors that we talk about specifically in emergenetics. So the first one is expressiveness, and expressiveness is how you recharge your energy. So those of you on the first third end of expressiveness, this is the introvert extrovert scale. So on the first third end of expressiveness is our more introverted folk. These are people who recharge their energy by being alone or in small groups of people. So if you're on the first third end of expressiveness, and right now you're feeling like you're in your home and there's a lot of people around, I suggest looking for opportunities to be by yourself and recharge your energy in this way. So maybe noise canceling headphones is the way to go, or getting up early in the morning before your family does, going for a walk by yourself. These are ways that you can recharge your energy as a first third expressive. Those of us on the third end of expressive, we get our energy from people and stimulation, and we often like to hang out in coffee shops and big parties with lots of groups of people. And because we can't do those things, we may be really struggling right now with the self-isolation and sort of being contained. And so ways that you can recharge your energy bars even while in self-isolation are music in the background, or TV. You know, if you're doing your work, don't do it in a real quiet place. Get some stimulation in the background. Have lots of group video chats. Video will be really important because you like to see facial expressions and hear you talk and hear other people talk. Those of us on the third end of expressiveness, we typically use 25,000 words a day. That's how many we will speak, as opposed to first third expressives who will only use 5,000 words a day. So we need opportunity to use those 25,000 words a day. And our families are probably tired of hearing us, especially if they're on the first third end. So get your energy bars recharged by being with other people. Participate in dance parties, online or offline. Just get that stimulation going with lots of noise and energy and sort of chaos. I know that sounds a bit crazy, but a little bit chaotic. The second behavior is assertiveness. So this is how this is the amount of energy that we use to express our thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. If you are on the third end of assertiveness, people will likely know what you believe in. They will know what your goals are. You are typically forceful and driving and are quite clear on what you want and how you're going to get there. And then those of us on the first third end of assertiveness, more typically peacekeepers. You know, we really like the status quo. We're good to go along with the flow, and you know, we know our opinions, we know our beliefs, but not everybody else needs to know them. We believe that we can be okay to sort of acquiesce to the third assertives in the interest of keeping the peace and kind of going with the flow. And again, those of us on the second third of assertiveness goes either way. You know, if there's something that really matters to us, we can be very driving and forceful and tell people what our opinions are and really encourage and get people to follow along with us. But we also can be peacekeepers if it doesn't really matter, and if there's sort of bigger fish to fry or bigger battles to be won, we're good to flex to the first third end of assertiveness. So if you are on the third end of assertiveness, and especially in this time, in this global pandemic and self-isolation, you might be recognizing that you have strong opinions on what we should do, what the world should do, how we should live. You might know best about how to live and really to thrive in this environment. And you could be sharing that online and your family members on video chats and things like that. Just keep in mind that not everybody is as assertive as you, and they may have their own opinions, and they're entitled to share them, of course. And just be careful about how much you share your opinions or enforce your opinions upon other people who probably have other opinions and want to do what's best for them as well. And if you're on the first third end of assertiveness, in this time, you may be a bit unsure. You might not be super clear on what your beliefs are and what you want to do. And so you might be following along with recommendations from other people, third assertives in your life, or medical professionals and government officials and things like that. And that's awesome. That's totally cool. You should follow along if you believe that that's right, and those guys are educated and knowledgeable and they're doing their thing. So that's awesome. Do those things or follow along with the thirds, or figure out what works best for you. Again, there's no right or wrong here. It's just how you show up and how you behave. So just give some thought on whether you think you're on the first third end or third end, and you can, adjust your behavior or recognize your behavior depending on where you fall on that spectrum. And then the third attribute in behavior is called flexibility, and this one's quite obvious. This is how you like to adapt to change, how okay you are with change in your life, and how flexible you are to adapt based on changing situations, more information, things like that. So if you're on the third end of flexibility, you are likely totally okay with change. The chaos going on in the world right now is scary, and you could be still feeling fearful about it, but you're okay with adapting to the change. You can every time you hear a new government restriction or a new change in a government rule, it doesn't cause you a whole bunch of stress. It just is what it is, and you'll adapt your behavior to reflect that change. You're okay with the change. Those of us on the first third end of flexibility, it's just harder for us to change. It's not a comfortable place to be for us to adapt to those kinds of changes. Typically, once we get a decision, once a decision has been made, we want to stick with it. We want to continue forward, operating from the place of that decision, and it's just harder for us to adapt. It just takes a little bit longer. It doesn't say that we can't do it, because of course, like we talked about, it's not about whether we can or can't, it's just how long and how much energy it takes us to get there. So those of you on the first third end, or those of us on the first third end of flexibility, maybe we just need a little bit more information or a little bit more convincing or compelling reasons why we'd want to change, why we'd be comfortable changing a decision that's already been made. So depending on where you are on the spectrum of flexibility, this could be a really super difficult time for you right now, especially those on the first third end where change is a scary, unnatural, don't like it kind of thing. There's a lot of change going on in the world right now, and it's happening really, really super quickly. So if you aren't feeling comfortable, it totally stands to reason that would be why. If you recognize or resonate being on the first third end of flexibility and you're having a hard time right now, seems very reasonable to me. So figure out where you fit on the flexibility scale, and if you are feeling like you're on the first third end of flexibility, recognition of that is really important. And then figure out historically how you have been able to adapt to change. So maybe you just need more information. Maybe you just need more time to sit and be with it. Whatever works for you or has worked for you in the past on being okay or being more accepting of change, figure out what's worked best and see if you can't employ some of those techniques now. Those of you on the third end of flexibility, you might be feeling okay with the changes that are going on and the pace of change that's going on, but recognize that not everybody is like you and might need a little bit extra time to adjust to the changes going on in the world. All of Emergenetics is about understanding ourselves, but also understanding and recognizing those differences in other people. And so that's something, just to sort of wrap it all up, something to really consider is as you're thinking through these behaviors and which ones seem to resonate with you and how you're showing up in the world, pay attention to how the other people in your life are also showing up in the world and how their behaviors, their stress levels might be affected by what's going on because of their natural tendencies and their preferences for behavior. I hope this has been helpful. I look forward to speaking to you again tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your day.